most of that time, I was just someone who ran. Occasionally in the morning, well, actually usually in the morning, I'd go out and run. I'd run for probably 30 minutes or so. I had no idea about the mileage. I just enjoyed going out and running. Fellow Toastmasters, Mr. Toastmaster, I'm about to share with you my story about my descent to the dark side. For 25 of those years of my running, like I said, I enjoyed my running. It was something I did in the morning, and it was for me. Occasionally I'd have the dog, and sometimes I'd be coaxed into doing a 5K run, which is a 3-mile race. It wasn't very time consuming. It only took about 30, maybe 45 minutes of my time, and I enjoyed it. During this time period, I developed what I considered a hierarchy of people who ran. There were the people who just ran, like myself. There were runners, and then there were people who were on the dark side. A friend of mine had convinced me to do a triathlon with her. And a triathlon is where you swim, and then you bike, and you run. This was a sprint distance, so it was very, very short, and still put me in the range of what I considered to be someone who ran, you know, someone who exercised, but I wasn't an athlete. But after I got done with it, I thought, you know, I think I want a little bit more of a challenge, but something that doesn't involve swimming. Just wasn't for me. And in town, we have something called the Capital City River Run, and it's a half marathon, which is a 13-mile race. And I thought, I think I can do this. This is a little bit of a challenge, but not a huge challenge. So I signed up for the race, and then I immediately signed up for the Playmakers team and training, and they provide you with a schedule, and they have runs, and they have people who run with you. I was becoming a runner. I knew about paces, and I had a plan. And I knew that I would never be one of those runners that you see on TV. You know, the long-legged gazelle-type runners that just look effortless. I was definitely going to be one of those people that just kind of trudged along and just got the job done. But I was still a runner. About a month into my training, though, I started flirting with the dark side. And at this point, I'll tell you what my definition of the dark side is. And it's kind of difficult. It's not a dictionary definition per se, but anyone who runs anything longer than a marathon is on the dark side. That's 26 miles. If you run anything over a half marathon or 13 miles, but it's not on flat ground, that's a dark side candidate. And also, anyone who loses all rational thought when it comes to their running has slipped to the dark side. Now going back, I told you I was a month into my training, and I started flirting with the dark side. I got bronchitis. And it was the summer, so it didn't really make sense. That's usually a winter thing. But instead of stopping my running, I stuck to my schedule because I had a plan. I had to finish my plan in order to finish my race. I decided to hang on to the bronchitis for 3 whole months, the last 3 months of my training, and I ran that half marathon with my bronchitis. Fortunately, my training schedule also told me to take 2 weeks off at the end of the half marathon, and my bronchitis cleared up. I stepped away from the dark side. During the whole process of running the half marathon, there are a lot of volunteers who help out. There are aid stations and people who check you in and check you out, and then if you are not feeling well, they're there to take care of you. And I thought, I need to give back to the running community. I need to volunteer for a race. So I signed up to volunteer and spent 13 straight hours at the Dances with Dirt in Hell, which is an ultra-marathon event, 30 miles and 50 miles. And I was looking at these people all day. You know, some of these people are runners like me, not real runners, but just people who are just kind of making it by. And if they can do a 30 or 50-mile run, I can do a marathon. It's only 26 miles. I mean, I can do this. So I signed up for a marathon. not an easy one like Grand Rapids, I decided to do the Pinckney Trail Marathon, which is 26 miles through undulating hills. And again, I signed up for the training team, and I got my schedule, and I promptly became friends with the dark side. To give you an idea of how far I fell to the dark side, one of my 16-mile runs was in January, in a whiteout snowstorm, with single-digit temperatures and a negative wind chill. Later that day, I had coffee with a friend, and he said, "Carrie, you know, that kind of sounds like some form of self-flagellation. You know, that you're just kind of beating yourself up for something that you've done." So the next time I had a long run, I had that image that maybe I'm beating myself up doing this. This might not be sane. But you know what? Didn't think much about it because I had my schedule. I only had bronchitis once, and I beat it. So on that morning, I approached the line, and I started the race. Now, one thing I did develop during my training was an overuse problem, and my knee tended to swell up. And around mile 6, it had swelled up enough that I couldn't really bend my knee anymore. And so going up hills was kind of difficult, and going down hills was difficult, but I was bound and determined I was going to finish this race. However, around mile 11, my sanity came back to me, and I thought maybe this isn't a wise thing for me to do. I actually pulled out of the marathon after 13 miles at the halfway mark. I didn't run for another month, and I spent 6 weeks in physical therapy trying to undo the damage I had done to myself. Fortunately, I'm a year and a half out. I am no longer near the dark side. This morning, I went for a run. I have no idea how fast I ran or how far. I enjoyed it. You can still hear birds out chirping. And I was glad to say that I enjoyed it again. I no longer needed the dark side. So there, you've heard my story about my trek to and away from the dark side of running. Thank you.